Before we begin, I just wanted to share with you all a meme that a friend sent me. I'm guessing in response to my comments made in my Invasion of Time review, where I said I would stop mentioning every time a classic Doctor used a gun, in preparation for this serial, which contains a scene where the Doctor takes a laser gun off a side character and proceeds to wield it. I present to you, behold, the Dirvinator with a Doctor. Yeah. I like that. Thanks for sending that one to me, buddy. And while we're in the mood for laughing, how about a scene where K9 spins right round like a record baby for some reason? And of course, my new favourite, best cliffhanger in all of classic Doctor Who.
Doctor, we have come for you.
Season 16 continues the Key to Time saga with Chapter 2, The Pirate Planet. A four-parter from 1978 that follows up on last week's very enjoyable The Reboss Operation. After such a good start to the season last week, I was eagerly anticipating this one, which also meant that I had high hopes for it. Did it live up to those expectations, or did it disappoint me? Well, let's just say that when the story opened with Doctor Eggman from the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise as a half-robotic space pirate leader, I knew we were in for an interesting time. I love this guy. Actor Bruce Purchase portrays him with such bombastic energy. He's not afraid to get a bit silly, you know? It's quite a spectacle. Really reminded me a lot of Emperor Nero from the Romans. And, as a personal bonus, the actor is also a fellow New Zealander. Sure, bro. He has so many great lines. My favourite probably has to be, "You dare to lay the rotting fruits of your own incompetence at my door?" What a guy. Alas, this is where I confess that I felt the story did dip a bit in quality, both in terms of comparing it to last week's serial and just as the plot went along. I still mostly liked it, but I couldn't help this feeling as I got closer and closer to the end that it ultimately wasn't going to amount to much, which unfortunately turned out to be truer than I'd hoped. As for the plot, the Fourth Doctor, Romana 1, and K9 Mark 2 are, of course, on the hunt for the second piece of the Key to Time, which proves difficult when, upon landing on a planet, which wasn't the planet they were apparently trying to land on, their little magical MacGuffin detector thingy says that the piece they're looking for is all around them. How can that be? Well, more on that later. And more importantly, what planet did they actually land on? Why is it in the exact same position as the planet they were aiming for? And what's all this about a supposed evil ex-queen? But first, here's a guy running on the spot because I find it funny. Yep, yet another intriguing setup bolstered by a brilliant, villainous pirate leader. Unfortunately, the story then diverts its attention to this little group known as the T.A.R.D.I.S. Yet another cult. These guys are so boring. Less uninteresting cult and more cool pirate captain, please. Thank you. I should point out, when I say pirate, I don't mean like traditional swashbuckling, "Arr, shiver me timbers, sailing the seven seas" pirates. I mean like the act of piracy, you know, like stealing, looting, plundering, spoilers, shh. To me, the most fun part about watching The Pirate Planet was putting things together in my head, like working out what was going on before it was revealed. Figuring out that the planet they had landed on was actually hollow, and how that connects to the whole mining situation, and what that ultimately means. I doubt it was intentional by the creators of this serial, but when it clicked in my mind, I was like, no way! If that is what I think it is, that's so evil! Same with this evil queen from long ago that characters kept mentioning every so often. Guessing what was going on there, well, let's just say me big, very smartness. Suffice to say, there's a lot of good and admittedly less good elements about it. And then there's stuff that's neither good or bad, just on my mind. For instance, the caves used for filming locations look so familiar. I was certain we had seen the exact same cave system before in a previous serial. Like, I was so sure they were the same as the ones used in Underworld or Revenge of the Cybermen. But after, admittedly, way too much time researching, no, they're different caves. What a waste of an hour perusing Doctor Who wikis and behind-the-scenes info. I guess all caves in the UK look the same? What am I talking about? A cave is a cave. I haven't mentioned it for a while, but this hat really does cut off circulation to my head, which, fun fact, is where the brain is located, so make of that what you will. Some things I thought were a bit on the weaker side were like the costumes for the citizens. They were pretty average, and like, I don't think the Doctor's coat he wore in the serial was particularly cool, and Romana's outfit was very plain. And the only reason I even notice like Romana's outfit in particular is because of Josh Schneer's video presentation on like Romana 1 and 2's costumes and their outfits sort of thing. I'm one to talk. I mean, I'm deliberately wearing the same shirt for this whole season. Right, yes, I'm hardly a fashionista. Anyway, what was I talking about? Things I thought were a bit weak. The really bland town centre set, like, the space pirate stuff was all pretty cool, like the engine rooms and everything, but the actual, like, town centre is like, that is not a real place. That is a soundstage. They are not outside right now. Look, it's like I'm looking at Star Trek: The Next Generation, where they reuse the same set for different planets over and over again. And finally, Romana's weird characterization in certain moments. Don't get me wrong, I know that she's a newly introduced character, and for all I know, they filmed the serials all out of order. Actually, if I'm being honest, they most likely did do that, because that's just what they used to do back then. So there's bound to be some inconsistencies. But last week, I feel she was introduced as a character with a lot of book smarts, but not as much like real-world practical experience. But here, she's occasionally quite snooty and uppity and like a real know-it-all, like, oh, it's not Leviosa, it's Leviosa. Honestly, I don't give a crap, and I actually quite liked the Fourth Doctor getting a taste of his own condescending attitude for a change. But the whole time while watching, all I could think about was, oh my goodness, imagine if they introduced this character today in modern Doctor Who. She would trigger all the Doctor Who fans on Twitter that like to spew hatred and hide behind any excuse they can think of. Seriously, I remember someone in my comment section of all places going off that they dared to cast a person of colour as Isaac Newton in the 60th anniversary specials. Particularly accurate? Probably not, but really? Who the fuck cares? A 2-minute cameo, really getting people that riled up? It reminds me of people's reaction to Helena Shaw's character in the 5th Indiana Jones movie. It's just a bit sad.
Oh my goodness, the internet was a mistake.
Anyways, speaking of Isaac Newton, that scene in the 60th actually contradicts a story told by the Fourth Doctor in this serial. But at the end of the day, it's not that it matters, you know, Doctor Who continuity and consistency. And hey, who's to say that both the 4th and 14th Doctor didn't help Newton to discover Mavity? Getting back on topic, I really like the very dark undertones of the narrative, what with all the dead and drained planets. I won't elaborate further for the sake of spoilers, but the plot is so good, I really think that a modern reimagining would do great. I could see a Capaldi-like story coming from it. And this whole dark undertone thing leads directly to a purely excellent Fourth Doctor monologue. Seriously, I'd say this is the best display of Tom Baker's acting, and really should be considered up there with that iconic Genesis of the Daleks, do I have that right scene. But then it all kind of just fumbles the ending. Nowhere near as bad as the final episode of Invasion of Time, but this last episode just had a few too many scenes that were too stupid to ignore. Call it lazy writing, call it cringe, call it classic Doctor Who, however you explain it, it just didn't quite stick the landing for me. I mean, come on, what is this? Really? What? How? I don't even have words. Just confusion, bewilderment, unbridled hilarity. It's still it just keeps going. Not to mention that at the last minute they're like, oh yeah, we were supposed to be looking for another piece of the key to time. Well, it turns out that the whole planet was that key fragment. Wait, what? I won't go into it, but one of the shrunken, drained planets was actually the third piece of the key to time. Huh? Was it always a piece? Even when it was full-sized? I told you I'd bring it up later. How is an entire planet supposed to be a piece of a key? What in the Harry Potter Horcrux is this nonsense? And, to add insult to injury, they don't even retrieve it. The Doctor says some mumbo-jumbo about sending it off into the time vortex for us to collect later. So we don't even see it happen in this serial. And I know for a fact we don't see it in next week's serial, so I guess they just grabbed it off screen? Huh. Ultimately, I did like the Pirate Planet, just not as much as I wanted to. Its lack of meaningful conclusion and iffy final episode let it down a bit, but I still say it's worth a watch. Thank you so much for watching. I am very tired. It gets dark at like 4 PM now in New Zealand. It's ridiculous. Anyway, tune in next week while I take a look at the Stones of Blood. Surely it's gonna be good, right? It's not.